While peace in Ukraine remains elusive, the delicate, nearly 4-week-old ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas appears to be holding at this hour. Hamas is set to release 3 more hostages on Saturday, including 1 Israeli American. In exchange, Israel will reportedly release 369 Palestinian prisoners. This will mark the 6th hostage exchange since the ceasefire went into effect January 19th. Earlier this week, it appeared that Hamas was backing away from the hostage exchange until, that is, President Trump made this demand.
As far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. All of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock.
The threats push negotiators back to the table, Israel agreeing to stick to the original plan, and then Hamas said, okay, us too, the release of 3 hostages tomorrow in exchange for more Palestinian prisoners. But it still drips and drabs. Joining us now, former IDF spokesperson and senior fellow at the Foundation of Defensive Democracies, Jonathan Conricus. Jonathan, first of all, thank you very much for coming on to talk about this. You've got to give us a sense of how somebody who has lived and breathed the IDF looks at what nearly happened. People were on tenterhooks thinking, is this whole thing going off the rails? And then it got back on track.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. A pleasure as always. I think it's a matter of time, sadly, until Hamas will make the ultimate decision to stop releasing Israeli hostages. Now, we don't know when Hamas will do that, but I think we have come very, very close this time. Tomorrow morning hours in Israel, in about, let's say, 10 hours, we'll know if Hamas really was impressed by the warnings of the U.S. president, and if they really are handing over hostages. It appears that they will do so, but sadly, with 76 Israeli hostages left in Hamas captivity for so long, including additional Americans and other nationalities, we fear for their lives. We fear that Hamas will stop returning them, and that will return the entire region, specifically Gaza and Israel, into war. Because then Israel will have nothing stopping it from actually going back and finishing off Hamas.
Can you help Americans understand how this is even fair? 3 hostages at a time who were stolen from their homes, most of them civilians, under gunfire, murder, bloodshed everywhere, and yet the exchange involves hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians who are in prison for crimes each time.
No, it isn't fair. It is like being held at gunpoint. That is what Israel is. And for many months, Israel fought and tried to defeat Hamas, but was prevented from doing so by various factors. And today, we still have Hamas as the de facto ruler of Gaza. And they still are holding 76 Israeli hostages. And we, in order to get them out, unfortunately have to agree to these terms. But, as absurd as the situation is and as horrible the pictures that we're seeing of the state of Israeli hostages as they come home, specifically the last 3 Israeli men who came back looking like Holocaust survivors, and they really sent a collective sense of rage throughout Israel to see Israeli civilians come back looking like they did. What I think is in store eventually is for Israel to try to get as many hostages out by the deal. And once Hamas violates the agreement, then to go back and hopefully this time with presidential backing, actually defeat Hamas and get the job done.
President Trump threw out the idea a couple of days ago of, quote, taking over Gaza and turning it into the, quote, Riviera of the Middle East. What do you make of that plan? The King of Jordan just visited the White House. I believe the head of Egypt is going to be coming as well. Doesn't really sound like Jordan is interested in opening its borders to 2 million Palestinian refugees. How realistic do you, somebody who's lived in Israel and worked with the IDF, see this plan being?
Yeah, I think it's a very important plan because it shifts the entire discussion and it really shatters a lot of taboos. It disrupts the understandings that we've been, working along for around 76 or 100 years. And I think it's very refreshing. It puts a new perspective on this almost age-old conflict, and hopefully it'll infuse new ideas, and maybe one day we will actually get peace and security in Israel, and we'll stop having jihadi terrorists attacking us. Now, I don't think Jordan is the key here. Jordan is further away, and they don't have historical ties with Gaza. Egypt has. And Egypt bears a lot of responsibility for the instability, the suffering, and the violence in the Gaza Strip. Egypt could have solved this issue by allowing Palestinians out in the beginning of their war, but they didn't because they've been very cruel to Palestinians. And hopefully now there will be pressure on Egypt to do the right thing and allow Gaza out so that Gaza can be rebuilt and we can have stability and prosperity.
We will wait 10 more hours to see these hostages come home, including an American-Israeli father of 3 kids. Jonathan Conricus, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel.